even sees a figure crawling in the night. Liza's eyes adjust in the pale moonlight. Jake's camera is rolling steady in the cold. Psychopinion is hunting for a story to be told.
It went off. It went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right.
Wait, I think I have something on my team.
Been adding fun little clips in the show.
Okay, I think I'm done.
All right. Welcome back, Pinheads, and this is Psych Opinion, and tonight we are going to discuss a topic that I thoroughly enjoy, which is the idea of things being based on a true story and how close to the true story it really is. So for tonight, what we're going to do is I had a bunch of movies planned that we were going to talk about, and it seemed that there was a common theme to a bunch of the movies, and I figured that that was actually probably a pretty good place to start. So I got our serial killer expert, Liza, here to go ahead and brush up on some Ed Gein. So we're going to talk about Ed Gein and the movies that inspired Ed Gein, and what is more based on a true story than not with the movies based on Ed Gein. So, if I was to say, Liza, I know nothing about Ed Gein, please tell me about him. What would you say?
Well, after a long week of Ed Gein and reading Deviant by Harold Schechter, I feel like
Deviant?
Deviant.
Oh, you said deviant. I was like, is that a fucking word?
Deviant.
Deviant by Harold Sphincter.
Harold Schechter. And doing a lot of research on him and just his life and everything else. I feel like I'm kind of ready to be done with Ed Gein. But so Ed Gein was a man. He was from Plainfield, Wisconsin, and he basically, the short of it is that he murdered 2 women. He murdered 2 older women. He was obsessed with his mother. He had a bit of an Oedipus complex. And he would also rob graves, and there actually was proof they actually dug up some graves. And there was nothing but bones. There was a few bones on top of the casket. So there is actually evidence of him digging up graves.
I have a question, and maybe you don't know the answer. Maybe nobody knows the answer. I'm not really sure. But how did he target these graves? Was it fresh meat? Was it specific people? Was it convenience? Like, how did he decide whose grave he was going to conquer?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. So what he would do is he would read the obituaries, and he would go there, and it was usually older women because he was obsessed with his mother, Augusta, and so they were usually in their 50s. And
when you say older, how old was he at this point? Because I picture him in my mind being older.
Like about his 40s, 50s.
So he's like my age. That's great.
I believe he was in his late 30s, early 40s when his mother died.
Okay.
So, but yeah, he would dig up the graves, and he would make he made furniture, he made lampshades, he had, I think it was like 9 vulvas, or he had vulvas, and he had skulls, but he would take the skin off the skull and create masks, and some of them had makeup on. He would preserve them by putting oil on them, and some of the interesting facts. I'll get in more into it when we talk about Psycho and Silence of the Lambs.
So get into some weird details here. So first of all, the furniture, was that like made out of bones and things?
It was. He did have bones.
Upholstered
with skin.
Furniture and skin.
He did have. I believe he had 2 skulls on his bedposts, and he would make. They called them skull caps. He made the skulls out of bones or out of bowls. He would make bowls out of skulls.
Yeah,
and he would eat out of them.
Posts.
Yes, he had them on the.
That's pretty epic, actually. That's pretty metal. I would totally rock a bed with like skulls of my enemies, like Just
Well, it was older women, so I don't
well, it
know.
doesn't matter. In my case, it'd be the skulls of my enemies. I mean, I'm not. They're still cool. I bet you it looked awesome.
Yeah.
God rest their souls.
But he would also, he said he felt very comforted by this. He felt very comforted by death. And so
Sounds
yeah,
emo.
that's,
Sounds pretty emo.
well, he was later on in his trials and things, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. So that coupled
Okay.
with those, I would say, severe mental abuse of his mother, created this.
So like, I guess you'd have to like. He probably did. He have like a knowledge of like taxidermy or tanning because like, in order to know, because like skin dries out. Like so you would have to know how to like maybe tan and you said oil, but like make sure that the skin stayed pliable. Otherwise, it would literally kind of eventually just be like probably like crumpled old like construction paper or something.
Well, there was a bottle of, I believe, formaldehyde, found in his house, and or embalming fluid. Sorry, there was a bottle of embalming fluid found in his house. So there was a rumor that he was an amateur taxidermist. So I don't know exactly how in Deviant. I don't believe it really went into how he knew that oil or whatnot would make the skin preserved, but he was an avid reader of, they called them adventure novels, and he was obsessed with a woman named Ilsa Koch. I believe that's her name. I don't really care how I pronounce her name because she was a Nazi, and that would cut the skin off of the Jewish prisoners and um, make different like lampshades out of the prisoners and things like that. And he was obsessed with her. So yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know.
I'm
if
sure
you've
there
read
was
that.
a bit of trial and error too. It's not like people were walking in the house and saying, "Hey, you need to water that fern," or your face is drying out. So I mean, it's a matter of him just kind of seeing what he needed to do and using some sort of oil, like Liza said, or any sort of hydrating cream, I would imagine. But
I would never want to make jokes about something so serious, but that's got to be a really difficult medium to use because if you mess up, like that's a lot of work, man. You got to go out the next night with a shovel. You got to dig 6 feet into the ground. You got to like get enough dirt off the door to open it up, pull out the bodies, like bring it back or skin it there. I mean, that's you can't just go down to the hardware store and be like, hey, let me get 10 more pounds of skin.
I don't
Well,
know. I'm sorry, Liza, real quick. Unfortunately, because I've been to more than I would have liked to admit. I I know when they do drop the casket in, sometimes it can be as long as the following day before they fill the dirt in. So, in essence, you could go out that night, open up the casket, get what you need to, shut it again. Nobody's going to check it,
That'd be
and
very convenient. That'd be
I would
that'd be
imagine
a
that.
lot easier.
Yeah, because going out and digging 6 feet of dirt, I don't believe so.
I don't know if I could get that done. Well, I guess I think I could get that done in a night. Did he always do it by him? He did it by himself. That guy
there was
must have been
speculation
fucking
that there was some man named Gus, but they said that he was very strong. He was very like a very kind of, they described him as a very small man, but they said that he was very strong. So
It must be. That's a hell of a lot of digging. If he doesn't do Steve's idea. But I'm going to go with Steve's idea. I'm going to find the fresh ones because, first of all, they probably smell less. And second of all, they're probably less gross to look at. And third of all, it's probably a lot easier to get to them. Like, oh man, old
And if
Mrs.
he's reading the
Hatfield died.
obituaries,
I better
he's
get
not
over the
waiting 6
graveyard.
months after the obituary comes out to go look.
That's a
I'm
good
sure
point.
that's probably
And
why
then
he was doing it.
The obituary a lot of times tells you when the service is, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't looked at the obituaries in a long time, so
yeah.
but he's over there getting all excited because old lady Mary hauled down the street passed away, and
This cup was based on a true story.
was it loosely based.
Loosely based, that's right.
So so his mother was abusive, and his mother was like, if I remember correctly, she was like super religious. You can't be around women, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Is
she
any-
was. I'm not.
Sorry.
I'm not sure if she was very. I'm not sure about how much physical abuse happened in the home, but him and his brother were very, to me, mentally abused by her, because she was basically like, women are evil. Women, if you have sex with another woman, you don't love your mother. And she even said that it's called the law of Onan is better than having sex outside of marriage, which in the Bible, it was a man who was, he married his dead brother's wife and he spilled his seed as opposed to having a child. And so it refers to, it refers to masturbation. So she basically was saying that masturbation is better than having sex with a woman, spilling your seed. And actually he actually, in Deviant, he said that he was a virgin. They asked him if he had sex with a corpse, and he said he didn't like the smell. And he said the only sexual encounters that he had was masturbation. So he never had sex with a woman.
And he said he didn't like the smell. That sounds to me like he thought about it. Like he was like, ooh, kind of. Did he do like I don't even know if we need to get into all that, but did he do the finger test? I mean, what the fuck? Sorry, too far.
Well, he would cut their entire vaginas out.
Okay.
Including some of the anus. So it would be.
And that was back in what, the
50s.
When was that, the 50s?
He was caught in 1957.
So,
I believe it was November of 57.
So I'm sure that those were some really bushy vaginas he's cutting out.
Probably.
So weird.
Another
I'm
strange.
trying to picture what this guy's doing here. I mean, when you guys are talking about something, you don't try to like imagine what's going on in your head. Like, I mean,
Well, they describe it very much in detail in Deviant. So if you want to imagine it, you can definitely hear the description there.
I think that's crossing a line.
But, well,
Man,
I do
this
actually.
house smells like ass. Oh, that's just the anuses drying.
Well, he would treat them. He would oddly treat them very. One of them was painted silver, and
did he braid them?
I'm talking about the skin.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you were still on the.
No,
anyway.
the vulva. He would paint it. He painted one silver. One was preserved in salt.
That's beautiful.
So.
I
don't think it was. I'll get into this when we talk about Buffalo Bill. But I don't think necessarily it was the sexual aspect of it. I think it was after his brother Henry was born, his mother very much wanted a girl. And I think that Ed always wanted to become a girl. So I think it was a matter of wanting to become a woman and wanting to know the anatomy of a woman and what it would feel like.
Man, that whole family dynamic would have been so different today, huh? Like, he could have just done it. Nobody would have said a thing.
Or you could have just said he was. That's all it takes now. So
yeah. So I mean, that would have worked. It's too bad, man. They're probably a victim of the times, really. I think is what happened there. Now, you mentioned his brother, and I wanted to bring that up because you said he killed 2 women. But I've also, I listen to my serial killer podcast, things like that, when I'm on the road a lot and stuff. And I believe that it was said that he killed his brother. Is that true?
Well, there's speculation that he did because he supposedly died in a fire and there was no, his brother's body was not burnt, but there was odd bruises around his head. And when they went to, he said that he couldn't find his brother in the, when the fire started on the farm, because they lived on over 100-acre farm out in the middle of nowhere, in Plainsfield, Minnesota, or Wisconsin, sorry. In the middle of nowhere in Wisconsin, and the fire started, and then Ed Gein had some firefighters come and help him, and then he led them right to Henry's body. But there's some speculation as well that he could have possibly killed his brother because I think his brother may have said something about him being so close to his mother, and it probably kind of pissed him off a little bit.
Don't talk about mama that way.
Because his brother was actually I believe his brother was like a lineman or he led construction. He had a whole crew that was under him as well. So his brother was actually pretty successful in the eyes of Ed Gein. So he was never married. He still lived at home. But
I mean, I don't think we should take anything away from Ed Gein, though. I mean, he obviously worked hard.
he was actually a very hard worker. They said that he would do things on the farms to help farmers, and he was also a handyman as well as a babysitter. And
Okay.
many of his friends, including Bobby Hill, were young adolescents, teenagers.
Damn it, Bobby.
Yep, that's his best friend. His best friend that was with him when he got arrested for Bernice Worden's murder was actually Bobby Hill.
You working hard, Ed? Yeah, you know it. Another day, another vulva. Was that a term back then? I don't know. I mean, obviously the guy was busy. I mean, if he had a job too, and then he's doing all this crap on the side, but man,
It's interesting though. Did he? I picked. Did the kids go to his house? Did he have like rooms locked up with stuff in it? Like how did people not notice this stuff earlier? I mean, if he had friends over.
Well, the skin masks that he had, he actually did show them to Bobby Hill, and he called them shrunken heads, and he said a relative went to another country and brought them back as souvenirs. And there was actually a couple that he wanted to give his house to. He wanted to switch their house because it was a huge house. I believe there was like 5 bedrooms upstairs. And they went inside the house, and the home was so disgusting that the wife was like, "No, I'm good." So
Yeah, I can imagine. Probably smelled great.
yeah, because he would just have trash. There was trash everywhere, actually, which is interesting because when his mother died, his mother was very meticulous and very clean. And he boarded her room off, and when the investigators went inside the home, it was just disgustingly trashy, and it smelled really disgusting.
Her room was perfect.
Yeah, when they took the boards off, it was like they went into another world because it was the clothes were meticulously folded in the dresser, and yeah.
Okay, well, I think we got a pretty good idea of who this guy is, and I'm sure we're going to build on that as we go. So, I think the first one that we're going to go here in order is probably going to be Psycho. Psycho was obviously a movie. Well, it was a book first, and it was a movie taken on by Alfred Hitchcock, absolute legend, and probably, in my opinion, one of the most well-known and famous horror movies of all time. I mean, when I think about it, it's like I know that there was horror movies before Psycho, and I know that there's always been like the campy B films and all that, but I feel like Psycho was one of the first like mainstream, like out there horror movies. I feel like I give Psycho a lot of credit for paving a lot of roads for horror. So with that being said, it was said that the main character, Norman Bates, was based on Ed Gein, a lot of it. And I kind of wanted to hit on that and sort of talk about the similarities and maybe the differences between Norman Bates and Ed Gein. So you kind of want to give us a little bit of insight as to what you feel like that is. I mean, by the way, if anybody hasn't seen Psycho, first of all, like I don't even know why you're watching the show because obviously you don't like horror. But second of all, like it's basically this guy whose mother died, and he is taking over the family motel, and he has a infatuation with his mother, and ends up killing women. There's a lot of scenes in the movie where he dresses like his mother. He pretends to be talking to his mother or makes the voice for her. Definitely a lot of psychosis there, and he pretty much is a serial killer of women who stop at the Bates Motel. Does that sound about right, Steve? You usually have a pretty good description of movies. You think I nailed that, or is there anything you want to add?
You did, and like I said when we talked about this in private before, there's so much depth to that movie. A lot of horror movies around that time frame were more kind of just about the shock and the shock and awe, I guess, is the best way to go about it. And though there were some decent stories, that was the lesser of the importance, I guess, in a lot of those types of horror movies. It was about trying to entice people and scare them and things. And and that movie has so much depth, especially with the character Marion, I believe her name was.
Marion
Um,
Crane.
yeah, and Norman, how similar those two were, although albeit not from a murderous standpoint or from maybe a psychological standpoint, but um, the way that they lived their lives and how it kind of intertwined a little bit to the point where they ultimately crossed paths, but not anything to do, of course, with Ed. But it is a fantastic movie to the point where it even caused me to start up watching Bates Motel again.
Ooh, that was a great show.
Man, it really is. I got through the first episode and I was like, "Damn, I forgot how good this was." And
Yeah, that show is excellent, and it's interesting too because what I liked about that show was that it was an updated version, but it really didn't turn me off at all. You know.
right, right, no, for sure. And both actor and actresses in that TV series are very good. So,
The other interesting kind of thing is that we've talked about Jaws on this show and how that's one of my favorite movies. And we talked about how that really caused such a panic and fear of the ocean. I would say that Psycho is almost as important to people's psychosis, if you will, like with the shower. You know, for example,
mhm.
I know even when I was, I know even when I was younger and I watched Psycho, like I would at least think about it when I was in the shower. You know, like oh man, the curtain. You know, kind of that little bit of fear with the curtain. Is there
Right.
somebody behind the curtain or anything like that? And it's interesting how these movies can instill that kind of it's almost like a forever thought, in certain
Right.
situations. I don't think I ever go in the ocean without thinking about Jaws. I mean, not that I'm necessarily afraid the shark's going to come eat me, but I just have, I'm in the
Right.
ocean. It's kind of, I'm out there, dude.
Well, a good horror movie plays off of your insecurities, or the fact
Yeah.
that, I mean, how are you more vulnerable than being naked in the shower outside of maybe taking a dump? I mean, like there's you couldn't be any more vulnerable, and so how do you kind of work that into a horror moment?
I feel like I'm
And
more
they,
vulnerable in the shower. I feel like I'm more prepared while I'm taking a dump than besides the shower. In the shower, I'm really distracted. I mean, I'm busy. I'm doing something. I mean, I'm shitting when I'm shitting, but I mean, I feel like I've got a lot more focus on the world around me.
what are you,
But in the
Cosmo
shower,
Kramer? You working on a salad in there and dinner or what?
I mean, I got a lot to do in there. That's all.
I got you.
Liza, to bring this back around, why don't you start telling us a little bit about the similarities? We'll talk about the similarities and the differences, and what do you think was really the main parts of inspiration for Norman Bates as far as Ed Gein is concerned?
Yeah, there were a lot of parallels in that movie, and I think there were a lot of things that they couldn't really discuss, and because I believe it came out with 1960, and I think there was a lot of things that Ed Gein did that they had to kind of create ways around it to kind of tell the story. But they were both obsessed with their mothers. They both had the Oedipus complex. The
Why don't you tell us really quick for anybody that doesn't know about the Oedipus complex? Because you keep saying it and butchering it, but we need like who knows what. I mean, if somebody doesn't know what that is, could you tell us a little bit about that?
the Oedipus complex. Oedipus was a man who married his mother and killed his father, and the great psychiatrist. Oh my God, my brain just
Sigmund Freud.
yes. Sorry, I don't know why my brain just wouldn't think of that. Sigmund Freud actually came up with the Oedipus complex because he said that men are obsessed; their first loves are their mothers, and the women, their first loves are their fathers. And
And
then
want to marry their mothers and kill their fathers.
well, they say at a very young age, a man or a young boy loves his mother, and then he grows to find out that his father is the alpha male, and that he sees the alpha male as more important. And also, there's a theory that possibly Ed Gein saw his father as very weak, and so he never had that kind of, knew that his father deserved his mother more than him, because
So
his
the mother was the alpha.
Augusta was very much the alpha.
Well, it's interesting though, because I mean, Sigmund Freud, in my opinion, I'm not saying that he was a pretty brilliant man. He was right about some things, in my opinion, and been maybe a little off on other things. But I mean, that's kind of a normal that's kind of a normal growth through life, though, is that, you know, if you have a strong male role model and you're born a man, I mean, isn't that kind of the point, is to like live up to that, to eventually become that? I mean, that's the circle of life, if you will. I mean, even the Lion King's kind of about that, the circle of life and all. You know, and I don't know. It's interesting, the take that he took on it, but I mean, it seems kind of obvious to me that when you're around your parents, your father's going to teach you how to behave, and your mother is going to represent what you would probably be attracted to or not, a woman, you know, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and there's also they both, him and Norman Bates, Ed Gein and Norman Bates both had very overbearing mothers, very domineering mothers. So there's the similarities there as well. So the other similarity was the taxidermy birds. There's kind of two ways you could kind of interpret that. Is when Marion first sees the stuffed birds, you can kind of see she's a little apprehensive when he asks her to have dinner with him in the hotel. And so you could kind of interpret that as a way of when he has those weird skin masks, he has the chairs, the lampshades, all those different kinds of things. He has that kind of weird decor. And also, like, there was a rumor that with the embalming fluid found, that he was an amateur taxidermist. So, as well as Ed Gein was schizophrenic, and he said that he did hear his mother's voice. The same with Norman Bates. They both killed women that they were attracted to. Ed Gein's two victims were Mary Hogan and Bernice Worden. And they both, especially Mary Hogan, reminded him of his mother.
Interesting side thought I just had here, though, is one major difference is how they treated the victims. Whereas it was like Gein wanted to preserve them in a way, and Gein wanted to take from them. It's like Norman really was just kind of more throwing them away.
Yeah, that is true.
I just thought about that. That's kind of interesting. What do you think about that, Steve?
I think maybe Norman's instinct was, in fact, just that, kind of spontaneous, and potentially had a kind of a quick rise and fall. Like, it's one of those things where you have to do it in the moment, and then after the fact, you either feel bad about it or have some sort of contrition, or just are moving on to the next thing. Where Ed was in it for the end game, the long haul, trying to preserve and keep intact and have a memory of that. It almost feels like with Norman, it was about getting to a point where it was a breaking point. Like, okay, I have to do this. And then afterwards, just like you hear in a lot of serial killers, they get that feeling that the only way you can quell it is to do the act. And then afterwards, they're good for a period of time, and they can put it away, and then they have to come back to it again. And I think in a lot of ways, that's probably how Norman was. He was maybe even a bit conflicted by doing it, but I don't know how much he necessarily enjoyed the act of taking life. That's funny with your kitty, man. Yeah, I would say that that's probably my take on the two big differences.
Well, Edward Gein, he did say that sometimes he did try to pray, and sometimes praying would help, but sometimes it just would overcome him. As well as I know with Norman Bates, he did hear his mother's voice and saying that basically that Marion, you know, she was trying to sleep with him, and, you know, stuff like that. I believe that was what she said in the movie. And then also, I know Mary Hogan, she was like a bar owner, a tavern owner, and She was very, and Ed Gein's mother was very pure, and so he wanted to kind of kill Mary Hogan because she reminded him of his mother, and that his mother deserved to live more than Mary Hogan did. So there was kind of that she deserved to die kind of thing because she was a harlot or whatnot. So
She was a dirty whore.
yeah. So
Yeah, interesting. And it's also interesting, like Steve said, though, or Eliza may have mentioned it, is that because of when the movie came out, I mean, imagine how different that movie would be today. Because back then, it's like he had a hard time getting that out. Like, based on the producers and everybody thinking it was too harsh or too scary, or, and it's like, but in my opinion, actually, I think that's kind of what makes it even more special, is that it doesn't have, sometimes it's nice to go back and watch something like that can be so thrilling and scary without all the blood and the gore and the things, the vulgarities that, are in movies today.
Right.
Which I'm not saying I have a problem with that, but I'm just saying it's like, what a fascinating and amazing movie for not having that. You know what I mean?
yeah.
For sure.
And there's also the aspect of I'll get more into this as we talk about Buffalo Bill and Silence of the Lambs, but
we'll move on in a minute. Calm down.
no, but the cross-dressing aspect, Norman Bates, it says very specifically, he was a cross-dresser in the aspect of he would wear women's skin as opposed to women's clothing, and Norman Bates wore women's clothing. So there's that aspect too, is I think that they wanted to put the cross-dressing aspect in there because they couldn't put the skin aspect in there, because in 1960s you really couldn't do something like that. So I think there was that kind of parallel as well.
It's interesting too, because Norman and Ed, they both seem like, it really seems like everything I know about them and everything you're telling us about them, it's like Ed was becoming his mother when he wore her clothing.
Yes.
And Ed also had a similar thing. It's interesting that there wasn't really much of a sexual aspect to either one of these characters when you get down to it, because I usually kind of imagine or picture that most serial killers do have some kind of like sexual gratification from the things that they do. But in this case,
Oh, yeah,
it really
absolutely.
isn't one. So,
Absolutely.
You know what else I find very strange too, or not so much strange, but intriguing, is that you said that Gein was caught in 57, right?
1950. Yeah, I believe it was November of 57.
And Psycho came out in 1960. So unless it took them 5 days to shoot, they were probably doing that at least a year, maybe even 2 years prior. And how long would it take for Ed Gein's kind of information to all spill out into the airwaves and onto the radio and everything else? And so there had to have been like just this small window of time where all of this information just started flooding out to the public, to where somebody like Hitchcock says, holy crap, I mean, look at this treasure trove of just information. So I wonder if the idea behind Psycho was conceived and followed through in full based upon an original concept, or if they were kind of going a certain way, and then all of this information from Ed Gein comes out and is made public, and he says, I'm going to tweak this and tweak that and really draw some more parallels to it, because there are so many parallels.
Well,
So
it was based on that. It was based on that book, and I know Alfred Hitchcock didn't he buy like every copy of that book he could find so that nobody knew the ending? I think I remember hearing a story about that, and I was watching something on Hitchcock where he like had everybody buy all of the books up so that people wouldn't see the ending coming.
And I never read the book, so I don't know how close the movie actually is to the book. But if it was, then how much earlier on was the book written? That's kind of wild.
I think I could be wrong, and somebody can catch me if I'm wrong. I believe that the author, I can't remember who wrote Psycho, I'm sorry. I believe the author actually wrote it after hearing about Ed Gein.
Gotcha.
Are you looking it up, Jake?
Well, I am, but I also wanted to continue on. Is there anything else that you wanted to add between differences or similarities?
I do. There's one last thing I do want to mention because I thought this was interesting. Norman Bates, there's a scene where he's talking to Arbogast, the private investigator, and he pops a piece of gum in his mouth. And I thought that was very interesting, and I wonder if that was a nod to Ed Gein, because one of the things that they found in Ed Gein's house was a can of Maxwell House coffee filled with chewed gum. And they said at one of his trials as well, he popped a piece of chewing gum in his mouth as well. So as I was watching that, I thought to myself, I wonder if that was a nod to him. So I thought that was interesting as well.
If it was, it would have to be for the especially depraved studiers of serial killers like yourself. And the author of Psycho was Robert Bloch.
What year was it written?
Yeah, when was it written?
1959.
Okay.
Wow.
So
they threw that movie together quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Did you guys know that Psycho has a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes? That's great. I believe it. I mean, I wouldn't question that at all, but I just thought it was interesting to see the number. Steve, did you have anything to add on Psycho, Ed Gein versus Norman Bates?
No, not really, outside of the fact that I know this is more of an Ed Gein-driven show, but for those who have seen Psycho either a long time ago or never been compelled to watch it for whatever reason, watch it and pay attention, because there is, and it's been years since I've seen it, but I have kind of come back to it a few times over the last few months just to kind of take a look at some things. And I've started to notice a lot more about some of the intertwining relationship, I guess we'll put it that way, between Mary and Norman that I never really paid attention to originally, and how similar they are in the fact that they're both going through something in their life that is difficult. And I'll just leave it at that. But I mean, it's pretty cool. There's some really cool moments in there that show a lot more depth to the movie than what meets the eye at first watch, I think.
And I'd also like to add that if you do take Steve's advice and go to watch Psycho, if you see Vince Vaughn, you're fucking up, go ahead back and make sure that you're watching the 1960 version with Anthony Perkins, because the one, as much as I love Vince Vaughn, the one with Vince Vaughn is kind of trash. So with that being said, we have more movies that are based on Ed Gein. And Liza has mentioned Silence of the Lambs about 4 times by now. So I don't want to go ahead and take all the spotlight on the descriptions here. Steve gives a hell of a description. Steve, could you give us the Reader's Digest version of Silence of the Lambs quick?
So obviously the movie is about I believe it's an FBI agent. I've only seen it 50 times and I can't even remember what damn 3-letter agency. Yes, it's about her, and obviously chronicles a story of another fictional character, Hannibal Lecter, and which I'm assuming Liza's going to give several parallels to Ed Gein in his tour de force performance, Sir Anthony Hopkins. So, if you want to, what do you?
Did Ed Gein have much in common with Hannibal Lecter? Because you kept bringing up Buffalo Bill.
Well, yeah, no, there was a touch of Lecter. There's a lot of Buffalo Bill. There's, I mean, virtually everything that's attached to Hannibal in all the movies. There are 4 of them, I think, and all the characters within them have taken a page from Gein's book. So, but long story short, the movie is about a young FBI agent that is appealing to a serial killer in his own right, very dangerous one, to get information about how another serial killer would think, and therefore to be able to catch them potentially in the act or before they do it again. And that, of course, is Buffalo Bill. So, and obviously if you haven't seen Silence of the Lambs, then you're either 12 or you don't like anything to do with horror or suspense or anything else. So I don't really need to get into too much more detail. Everybody knows about Silence of the Lambs.
Everybody knows about it. This one was made in 1991, so that's 31 years after Psycho. And I'm going to tell you right now, guys, if we have any aspiring filmmakers out there, make a movie based on Ed Gein, because this one is 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's like two heavy hitters in a row right there, and that is crazy. I mean, to be responsible for either one of those movies would be legendary. The cast, as Steve was saying, is Anthony Hopkins. Interesting. The last one was Anthony Perkins. No relation. And Buffalo Bill is Ted Levine, which a lot of people don't really know Ted Levine. I was a big Monk fan, and Ted
Loved
Levine
him in
was
Monk.
he was Monk's chief. And I really enjoyed him in that show. He also was in the remake
Flubber.
of Have Eyes.
He was in Flubber,
Yeah, but
if we remember that movie.
he was also in the remake of The Hills Have Eyes. Played the father that burnt to death and was all like on the stake or whatever. Anyway, yeah. So good movie. Liza, who is like Ed Gein in this movie and why?
So actually, both Buffalo Bill and Hannibal Lecter, there are some parallels to both. As far as Ed Gein, the big difference, one of the biggest similarities is in the movie, Buffalo Bill is killing women, size 14, to make a woman suit.
You just said size 14. Was that relevant to Ed Gein?
No, it was just relevant to Buffalo Bill.
Were Ed Gein's
although
women, were Ed Gein's women big girls?
I believe they were bigger women, yes. So yeah, like his mother was like broad chested.
I like that, because in all of these other horror movies, it's always like cute little college girls getting killed. It's kind of nice to see some of the bigger girls get some attention here. So I like that. That's good stuff.
Well,
So this episode is for you bigger girls out there.
Maybe not the attention that they were looking for, but attention just the same.
Usually the attention from men that women get isn't great, so I mean, it's on par.
So he is making a woman suit, and he, in one of the scenes, I think you do briefly, as Clarice is going through his house, you do briefly see the woman suit, and you do see him, one of the scenes, you do see him sewing it together as well. And then there is a scene with him, the famous dancing scene.
Ooh, the penis tuck scene.
Yes, you do see a little bit of skin, like separation right here, and you can tell that he has a wig on that I'm assuming is made out of one of his victims. And so Ed Gein, they're said to have, they found leggings that were made out of human skin that he would wear, as well as...
I know it sounds sick, but I wish I could see these things and because I mean, I feel like a legging made out of skin would just rip. Like, just instantly, just like the second you try to put your foot in it.
I don't know.
I don't even know so much if he was wearing it versus just creating an article of clothing.
No, Ed Gein did wear it. He had a torso. They found a vest that was an upper torso of a woman, as well as he had several skin masks that he painted. And so So in Deviant, and there have been several other places that I have seen this as well, they talk about how in the middle of the night he would put these items on and he would go outside and he would dance in the moonlight in this skin suit.
In the moonlight.
There was also, now this is very graphic, so
viewer discretion is advised.
Giving a trigger warning. So this is pretty graphic, but in one of the conversations that he had with one of the psychologists, they actually asked him if he did anything with the vulvas. So what is speculated is that he would put the vulvas over his penis and put underwear over that and wear the vulvas as if so he could feel like what it was like to be a woman. Kind of like
penis through the vulva.
I assume so.
Isn't that kind of like losing your virginity? Does that qualify, Steve?
I don't. It is in his mind. I do not think there was anything sexual about it.
Let me check the rule book. I mean, how the hell do I know?
I'm pretty sure there was nothing sexual about it, but that is in similar fashion the way Buffalo Bill kind of did the tuck and things like that. So And also, what kind of reminded me of the how he would oil the skin is when he talks, and says it puts the lotion on, or else it gets the hose again. So he would have the women put lotion on, so as to keep the skin soft. So, yeah. So, and there you go. There's the skin piece. Another thing that was very similar is that they would both shoot their victims. Buffalo Bill shot his victims, as well as Ed Gein both shot.
Ed Gein shot his victims, huh?
Yes,
he shot. I pictured him as more of like a strangler.
No, I think a lot of people, when they think of Ed Gein, they think that he like tortured people, but it was actually very quick. I think they said that Bernice Worden actually died pretty quickly.
You know, I wouldn't think that he tortured people. I was actually thinking that he might strangle them in order to preserve everything nicely, because I would almost think that like shooting something or stabbing something might be the way.
It's like a moth hole in a sweet cashmere sweater.
Yeah,
you wouldn't
exactly.
want to do
They said
that.
there was like a slight deviation in her skull. So
That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that.
yes,
You learn something new every day, pinheads. You learn something new every day.
that is exactly right. Also, another similarity that if you blink, you would miss it. But Ed Gein was obsessed with Ilsa. I think her name was Ilsa Koch. She was a Nazi, and he was fascinated by her in these adventure magazines and things like that. In a brief moment, you do see a blanket with a swastika on Buffalo Bill's bed. And so I thought that was a little bit of a parallel between them as well.
It's interesting. I never noticed that, and I've seen that movie a lot.
It's when...
Steve, did you ever notice the swastika on his blanket?
I have not.
It's when he is loading his gun and Clarice is there, and he goes down to the basement and he's loading his gun, and you briefly see his bed. I believe it's his bed, or it looks like a blanket on top of the bed.
You know, not knowing what you just told us, though, I probably, maybe even if I did see it, was just like, oh, he's a serial killer. Like, obviously, like, being a Nazi isn't above him.
That is true.
Not that all swastikas are necessarily Nazi, but, you know.
Well, I believe in the case of Buffalo Bill it was.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
But now moving along in regards to Hannibal Lecter, because there are actually some similarities that I think could be interpreted as similarities to Ed Gein. When he hung the cop up on the bars and he was flayed out, Bernice Worden was said to she was hung by her ankles, and she was said to have been dressed like a deer. So... that is...
I know what you mean when you say dressed like a deer, but I just pictured her in like a deer costume. Like that was kind of funny. I'm sorry.
But yes. So also there is...
That's exactly what I was thinking, but I mean, I obviously...
Well, she was...
like a Halloween deer costume with antlers and stuff.
She was cut open like a deer. Yeah. And...
somehow it seems like it would have been more crazy had they found her dressed like a deer, though. Like, that would have been like, what is he?
Well, I don't know if you can imagine this, but in 1957, in his farmhouse, there was zero electricity, so there were zero lights. They found him in a summer kitchen, which I believe is like a shed. And you have these cops that are in Plainfield, Wisconsin, that probably have maybe seen, if they've seen a dead body, there have been very few and far between, and definitely nothing like this. And so they go into this house and they see this woman and she's like, her ankles are bound. She's just hung up on this. There's like metal bars through her wrists and ankles, I believe. And it's just a very graphic scene. So I'm pretty sure that they would rather her have been dressed like a deer. So,
Liza, I'm sure you know this, and for whatever reason, I don't. What got him caught? Was it the murders, or was it the grave robbing, or was it somebody just pointing and saying, "Hey, this dude's weird"? I mean,
was it Bobby Hill?
Was it
No.
Bobby Hill? Did he tell his dad?
No, actually, what it was is that when he shot her, so Bernice Warden was she was like a shop owner. They had guns, and I believe he was going to buy antifreeze from her. And he asked her son. It was hunting season, and basically in Plainfield, they said that every basically man in the town was gone off hunting, and so Ed Gein had gone to that shop that I believe was the previous day, and he had asked her son if he was going to go hunting, and he said, "Well, yeah." So Ed Gein went to her shop. Yeah, Ed Gein went to her shop and asked. No, he actually did not. He said that he was not a deer hunter because he couldn't stand the sight of blood, which is interesting. But so he went to her shop, bought some antifreeze. So there was a receipt that she had signed with the purchase. And then he came back and said that he wanted to buy a gun. And he was actually loaded. I believe he was purchasing the gun. He had the rounds with him, and he loaded them to the gun. And I believe when her back was turned, he shot her. And then her son came back to find her missing, and they didn't know where she was. But I believe there was some blood that they had found. And then that's when, and Ed Gein had actually gone to Bobby Hill's house to have dinner. And the police, that's when they had gone to Ed Gein's house, saw Bernice Warden, and they knew that he was frequenting that he frequented Bobby's Hill's house. And they caught him in the car, and they were asking him about Bernice Warden, and he was like, "No, she's dead, isn't she?" And they were like, "How did you know that she was dead?" And he was like, "I'm framed." And then that's when they knew. They were like, "Okay, he did it."
I mean, it sounds like he was framed, possibly by that Bobby Hill character.
No.
I mean, what did he ever allude to why he ended up killing her? I mean, it sounds like he could have continued to get away with everything he was doing if he wasn't going to murder people, which wasn't his MO at the time, I guess.
I think that I think that she reminded him a lot of his mother as well.
How old was his mother when she died? How long was he doing everything without her? Was she on an old lady when she died?
Yeah, she was older.
Oh.
But like when he was growing up and stuff, she was that age. So
maybe that's when he had his thing. Because I think you and I were discussing this at one point in time, that he was a really good babysitter, and it's almost like he related really well to the kids because it's almost like he was mentally, like around their age in some ways. So, I mean, I do believe that a lot of people get their, have developmental issues and their growth gets stunted mentally. I mean, so it's possible that maybe he was going for women that were at a certain age that he saw when he was younger.
Yeah. Well, they did an IQ test on him, and he was found to be pretty much average intelligence. But you're right, you're correct. His emotional intelligence was that of younger, like 16-year-olds, adolescents, and things like that. So
when he was 16, his mother was probably around that 45 range or so, 50 range we're talking about.
Yeah, because they said the other men, he said that the men in the town said that when they would try to talk about women and stuff like that, they said Eddie Gein would never kind of engage in that kind of talk about women and things like that. Everybody would call him Eddie Gein. He was called Eddie Gein.
Eddie Gein.
So, yeah.
Eddie Gein, butcher.
Edward Theodore Gein. That's his name.
Eddie Teddy Gein. I like it.
So another similarity between him and Hannibal, now he never admitted to being a cannibal, and he said that he never ate any human flesh or anything like that. However, they did find Bernice Warden's heart in a pot on his stove.
How poetic.
So
one bit of knowledge, his mother died in 1945 at 67.
There you go.
Okay, so his reign was probably around 12 years-ish, about a decade. Okay. So, if you don't have anything else to add to that, I did want to hit one more really quick.
I do. I want to hit one last thing. It's like the gum thing.
It's always one last thing. She just got this
Um,
at the end.
I know this is a bit of a stretch, but it did remind me of Ed Gein. It did remind me of Ed
You're all
Gein.
over the place, Eddie, Edward, Ed. I mean,
Well, because we were just saying Edward Theodore. But one thing that did remind me of Ed Gein was when Hannibal talked about how he ate his liver with fava beans, and Ed's favorite meal was pork and beans that he would eat pretty much every day.
he looks like the type of guy that eat pork and beans every day. Let's show a picture. I'm sure 1,000 pictures, but let's show one. Tell me that is not a man that looks like he eats pork and beans or whatever every day. Franks and beans. Anyway, all right. Well, that is interesting, and I also want to say that we may hit on it a little bit later, but Silence of the Lambs is also based on other serial killers. The director packed in a lot of little tidbits in the serial killer world. But tonight we're focused on Ed Gein, and the last one that I really wanted to hit before we go is one of my favorites that we've talked about many times is Texas Chainsaw. And the image that I was seeing basically throughout this whole conversation is that classic image of Leatherface with the woman's mask on, with the lipstick and the makeup, running with the chainsaw, and that obviously is just straight out of like Ed Gein face mask, woman's face mask. So right then and there, boom, first thing. Texas Chainsaw is one of probably not the first. I wouldn't know, but it's probably one of the biggest movies of all time as far as really pushing that agenda based on a true story. Like, I mean, its whole intro is basically to make you believe this actually happened. They use all kinds of different clips to make it seem like there's real detectives looking into this thing. It's very, very interesting how they really drive home the based on actual events. And I think a lot of people have really taken it a lot more to heart than it is. Now, Texas Chainsaw obviously is a lot more action-packed and a lot more gory than the true story because, as we've discussed, Ed Gein was really robbing a lot of graves, and here we have Texas Chainsaw, where it's essentially this deranged family, and kind of the bulk or brawn of this family is Leatherface, and his weapon of choice is a chainsaw, and he's basically just mowing down anything he can with a chainsaw. Very far from Ed Gein, but there are some similarities. Liza, if you want to go ahead and hit on a couple of those similarities, and then, of course, there's more differences than similarities, so let's just kind of focus on what's close to true.
Well, definitely like hanging the bodies, dressing the bodies. Definitely the isolation of the farm, I would say, would probably be one of a major similarity, because the Gein farm was way over hundreds. It was over 100 acres, as well as in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the religious aspect of it as well. And so those are kind of the only things that I really see that are very much similar to Ed Gein, because Ed Gein was a very small individual. So,
yeah, whereas Leatherface was huge. I would say that one of the other similarities that really sticks out to me is the fact that in Texas Chainsaw, they really used a lot of, and you see this throughout the Texas Chainsaw movies, that he really did kind of, I would say the closest thing, and I already mentioned the woman's mask, but a lot of, it seemed like he was always tinkering with body parts and kind of making his little creations and stuff he kind of around, and they talked about that in the beginning, some of the gruesome things that they found. There really wasn't that mother part, though, which, that was a huge part of Ed Gein, and we didn't really see that in Silence of the Lambs as much either.
Yeah, but you're also not trying to copy almost verbatim, a certain, unless you're making a movie about Ed Gein. I mean, it's okay to pick certain things, and I would fancy to say that more than likely wearing somebody else's face is as creepy as it gets. When you think of Leatherface in general, I mean, he's got that psychological scare from the standpoint of his appearance, But then you take that with, for example, if you or I, Jake, are running at somebody with a chainsaw, they're like, holy shit, this guy's got a chainsaw, he's going to kill me. But you or I are covered in human skin or somebody else's face, that fear just triples. It really sets it over the top, and which is why that character is so iconic. I feel just because of the, I guess you call it dichotomy of the horror that is Leatherface. Both his psychological side and his actionable side.
One thing I think interesting about Leatherface, though, is that, and I love this about Leatherface, is that out of all the adaptations, of Leatherface and Texas Chainsaw, Leatherface always stayed human. And I like that. I just wanted to add that because, Friday the 13th and Halloween, at some point in time, these guys basically became, immortal. And I like the fact that Leatherface, he could be hurt. And he was a bunch of the times in the movies. And I like that. Not that has to do with Ed Gein, but I just think that that's a really interesting and fascinating part about that to me, is that they never brought it there, and I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
So, so when it comes down to it, I would say that those are pretty much the major similarities. Now, I did want to add a fun little story because I'm a Tobe Hooper fan. Tobe Hooper was the creator of Texas Chainsaw, and I saw an interview. I read an interview, and it was known that he said that a lot of his inspiration for the movie was that he was in this packed department store, I believe, around the holidays, and he just was just so miserable, just packed in with all these people like sardines, and he just had this daydream of just getting out of there with a chainsaw and just mowing everybody down with a chainsaw. And that was a large part of the inspiration, according to Tobe Hooper. So I think that that's just a really cool story. I really like the stories behind horror movies. I like to hear kind of where the directors or writers are coming from on a lot of stuff, because it's super interesting to me, being that, we haven't covered anything like that yet, but I've also been dabbling in writing some horror we'll be talking about on the coming episode.
Jake, I know I've mentioned to you, being that we both played this game in the past, but the whole Doom video games back in the day, being able to take a chainsaw, and I would guess that there has to be some correlation to, because who would have thought of taking a chainsaw to cut up aliens and stuff, or killing other people? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So they might have said, hey, let's take a page out of Leatherface's book and give this crazy guy a damn chainsaw when he runs out of ammo. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I think I will say, as I always say, I think Leatherface is the best of the slashers, but that's once again my opinion. And I haven't seen a Leatherface or Texas Chainsaw movie that I haven't liked. So obviously, I like some more than others, but it's neither here nor there. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to add, Liza? Did you have your tidbit on this one? Your last little.
Where's your bubble gum? Where's your Texas Chainsaw bubble gum scene? There it is.
So what? So
for Texas, I don't think there was any bubblegum chewed in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, was there?
No, he was asking what's your bubblegum fact?
That's right. What's your correlation? What's your little tidbit?
I don't have anything.
She's giving a nod back to Norman Bates right now.
Well, I do think that that's probably covers most of sort of the similarities and some of the interesting facts of these movies being based on Ed Gein.
I do have one last interesting fact.
Here it is, Steve. You ready?
It's not a serial killer fact. It is actually kind of a sad fact, but I think people should know.
Let's just end it on a sad note then, shall we?
Anthony Perkins, who played
Norman Bates.
He died in 92. However, his wife, her name was Bernie Berenson. She died on one of the planes in 9/11.
Wow.
I heard about that.
I never did, and I felt like I should, because that seems like it would be something that somebody like me would know.
Yeah. And I guess in summation and wrapping everything up, even though we all know that Ed Gein was real and that everything that he did was in fact something that actually happened, all of these movies that we are talking about kind of, albeit takes a small page out of his book here and there, they are all clearly something that is made for entertainment purpose. And so you can kind of dismiss it after the fact. You go to bed, you turn the movie off, whatever, and you go back to your daily ritual or whatever. But it almost kind of minimizes the actual truth of it all and the reality that this shit happened. And somebody actually did this. Somebody took people from the ground. Some people murdered people, cut their skin off, wore it, did all this stuff that Liza talked about. That is the epitome of just absolutely psychotic and deranged. And it's very scary to think about. And
Yes.
Obviously 75 years ago, give or take, maybe you couldn't get away with as much of that now, but who's to say that this isn't happening in some small town out in the Midwest, out of the way, and because there are some wild people in this world, obviously. And
I'm sure there's horrors going on that we don't even know about. And I mean, that's the funny thing too, is that a lot of times I just actually was talking to Liz about this the other night, how everybody seems to talk about Charles Manson as like the cult leader. And it's like Jim Jones and like all of the other cult leaders were worse than him. But for whatever reason, he just seemed to come around at the right time, or his story just hit a certain way. And it's like he is the most infamous cult leader. And it's like, he's not even the scariest. And that's the same with Ed Gein. Ed Gein did a lot of crazy and sick things. But I mean, if we were to sit here right now and have our little, serial killer expert here get into like the toolbox murders or something like that, there's so much more horrific things that happened than what Ed Gein even did. But once again, it's like I think his story hit, and it was so compelling at the time because of the time. And then it was like just magnified by the book and Alfred Hitchcock. And it's just kind of, Ed Gein is like, it's almost like he's America's serial killer. I mean, really, when you get down to it, it's like you have Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy and Jeffrey Dahmer and all these guys. But if we had to sit here right now, and this is a strange conversation, but if we had to sit here right now and say, who is America's serial killer, I would vote on Ed Gein, because he is just the one that is kind of the default. He's the one that's like kind of, I guess, maybe even started it all. But it's just interesting because, you saying that this stuff is real. It's like, yeah, it's real. And it's really much worse, quite honestly, even beyond this story. And that's kind of why I take a break sometimes. Liza is like swimming in the ocean of serial killers like constantly, and I have to take a break because sometimes I just start to feel like the world is too damn evil. Like I love horror movies, but I don't want to live in them.
Well, that's why I read books about fairies. But there's also I think a very interesting thing about Ed Gein is that he never served prison time. He was found insane to stand trial, and he actually incompetent to stand trial. Well, no, I believe they said I can't remember insane. My brain can't think of words, but he actually died in a mental institution in 1984.
Well, good for him, because that was probably a much better stay.
Man, absolutely insane.
I can't wait to find out more. Anyway, we've well past our hour now. I wanted to try to keep it a little bit lighter for you guys, but I did want to have a conversation about all of this, and hopefully you guys have something to add, and go ahead and hit us up in the comments. As always, it's been a pleasure spending this time with you, and we will see you again soon. See you soon.
Howdy.
Steven sees a figure crawling in the night. Liza's eyes adjust in the pale moonlight. Jake's camera is rolling steady in the cold. Psychopinion is hunting for a story to be told. Through the